Hello there. I am so excited to introduce you to Positive Perspectives with me, your host, Angela Tompkins. What is Positive Perspectives, you may ask? Well, it is a series of conversations with people who look like you and me, who work with us, who may go to school with us, we may even see them in the grocery store. The common theme that they have is whatever situation they're going to talk about, we're going to end up at a positive place. I'm excited because it's going to change all of our lives. So I'm excited to extend this invitation to you to join me, your host, Angela Tompkins, for Positive Perspectives. Hello there, it's me again, your host, Angela Tompkins, back with Positive Perspectives. A lot has happened since the last time we met together, and I'm excited to share with you. You get a chance to be a witness to some of my friends and our conversations and the things that we're doing in our lives. Today, our segment is entitled, Are You My Mother? But it's not going to take the role that it sounds like it's going to take. It's going to be kind of different. I'm going to make you think about some things that you probably never thought about before, or some that you may have thought about. I'm going to help you to understand how everything is okay and that being a mother is the best thing in the world. There's a lot of things that I've always wanted to be in my life, and I have to tell you something. Being a mother was the most important thing that I thought that I could be. And I think it's the thing that I'm the best at. So I'm going to bring in my friend and introduce her to you. If you give me just 1 second, I'm going to go and get her. Hello there, my friend neighbor. Hi.
Hello, my neighbor. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
It's so funny that we still call each other neighbor. We started this back in the days of that company we worked for that will remain nameless, but our offices were next door to each other. It is so good to see you.
It's such a treat to see you always.
Let me tell you something. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but you were so instrumental in me kind of finding my way and figuring out what to do with myself after I didn't do what I expected on the bar exam. I was like getting in a rut and I couldn't figure out what in the world I was going to do with this expensive piece of paper that I had. And you said, just sit back and wait and it'll find you. Well, it found me. It found me in a lot of ways. And this is one of them. And I'm excited about this particular task or this particular series of events that I'm doing because I get a chance to interact with so many people that I know and talk about such a variety of things. And today is no different. We're going to talk about motherhood. And as I said in the introduction, it's not going to be a traditional conversation of what people think because, you know, everybody has their own ideas of what being a mother is. But that being said, Melody, if you would introduce yourself and then kind of follow that introduction with what it means to you to be a mother.
Sure. My name's Melody, and I am the mother to 2 teenage daughters. My mother was in her mid-40s when I was born. And so I was raised by a woman who, in a lot of senses, was more like a grandmother. So I had a very old-fashioned mother. And although I was not in my 20s when I had children, I did want to be a younger mother just to be able to keep up and be a little bit more connected than I felt with my mom. So
Sure.
I'm trying my best.
Well, your daughters are beautiful and they seem to be very well grounded, and hats off to you for being amazing. Hats off
Thank
to you for
you.
being amazing. We also have something else in common. We were just talking before the broadcast, guardian ad litem program, something that we share in common. I was actually a guardian ad litem for about 2 years, and I stopped because work responsibilities, it got kind of hard to take off and go to court. So I kind of let that go. But during the time that I was a guardian ad litem, some of the stories that I heard or some of the kids that I was connected to broke my heart. Before I became a guardian ad litem, I adopted a child. Very non-traditional. My husband and I had decided we wanted another child because I felt like I was such a great mother. I needed another one because mine were, I think my youngest was 5 and the oldest was 10 at the time. And so they weren't needing me as much as they were before. So I needed to have someone else to need me because that was important. So found through some extenuating circumstances, I guess I have to say, a young lady who was about to have a baby any day now. And she said to a friend of mine, if I can't find anyone to adopt him, I'm leaving him in the hospital. Well, that was my God moment. There's your baby. And so it worked out that I got him. He's now 20 something and has been an amazing child to rear. And as with all children, we've had our obstacles and our difficulties, but I'm so glad that I did that. And I would not change it for the world. And so the commonality that we share is your work with Guardian ad Litem program. If you'll tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have been a trial attorney for over 20 years and I love representing my clients, but there's
First of
not,
all, has it's been 20 years?
I was barred in September of 2001, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. Yay.
And so I love what I do and I'm good at it, but I feel like sometimes the heart is missing.
Mhm.
And so when my oldest was one, I signed up to be a guardian ad litem attorney.
Okay.
So I would represent uh, youth in the foster care system as their representatives in court. And when I interviewed with the then director of the Fourth Judicial Circuit, Guardian Ad Litem, she said, "Tell me a little bit about your family." And I said, "Oh, I have a 1-year-old daughter." And she said, "Great, I'm going to give you male teens because I need you to be objective and I need you to not see your child in these children because
Oh,
you're there
wow.
as their advocate, not as their mom." I said,
Okay.
"Okay." So over the 4 years I was, or I guess it was 3 years, and I had three children. One was aging out. He had been placed in at 10 months and he was turning 18.
Mm.
One boy was returned after being placed in an adoptive home.
Mhm.
And then my heartbreak was this 15-year-old girl that had sustained eh, such abuse at the hands of her father.
Oh, wow.
And I met her at a mental health facility
Mm.
and remember going in front of the judge and we were trying to get her into a non-treatment home, more of a
Mhm.
residential home. And the judge at the time excused her for a moment and said, "I've never seen someone with so much trauma." And so I was I liked helping these children, although it's heartbreaking work.
Yeah.
And I, in the background, knew I wanted a second child. I had gotten very sick with my first child at the end of my pregnancy,
Mhm.
and I was not able to carry another child. And it never occurred to me that babies were in foster care. And I was
Yeah.
sitting in there in a hearing, and in walks this foster mom or guardian ad litem or someone carrying this young baby.
Mhm.
And I said, "That's my God moment. This is how I'm going to add to my family." And so
Wow.
that's another overlap that we share.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that we talked a little bit about these things when we were working together and we could have those intimate conversations.
Hmm.
And the similarities in our stories are astounding. They're absolutely amazing. But I love it because you and I get to have a chance to have this conversation and share with our listeners things about number one, the foster system.
Hmm.
And then number two, about non traditional parenting models. Because
Hmm.
as you said, it's a difficult thought process to think that babies are in foster care because that means something happened. And so, I just wonder from your experience when you did find out that babies were in there, how did that change the way you looked at the work you were doing?
It really, I went to the director and I said, "I didn't know there were babies in foster care." And she said, "I can't let you represent babies in foster care because it's too close to you."
Yeah.
But my husband and I knew we wanted to expand our family. And in Florida, to become an adoptive family through foster care, you have to go through the same steps as if you were becoming a foster family.
Hmm.
And so it was very eye opening because we had to take a 40-hour class spread out over 5 weeks. And we met children who were in the foster care system and who had
Yeah.
been adopted. And we
Yeah.
met adoptive families. And it just really opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of times when people think of adoption, they think of two categories. I'm flying to Asia
Hmm.
and I'm going to bring home an Asian child,
Yeah.
or I'm going to enter into an open relationship and bring home a newborn.
Yeah.
And we did neither.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of us did same thing. It just
Right.
and I think what is missing or what we miss people miss when they think about adoption is, you know, sure, we were successful in what we set out to do, but there are so many times that babies get overlooked or there aren't as many babies, or there, are there more teens, or the
Mhm.
reason for that. Let's, if you don't mind, talk about your experiences with the teens that you represented, because I think a lot of times people don't understand that as a guardian ad litem attorney, your job is to represent the children. You're there to
Right.
speak for the child. So can you share some of that?
Sure. I mean, my laugh out loud moment was I had this child who was aging out. So he entered at 10 months. He was a senior down in St. Augustine in high school, and he was living in a group home, a very good group home, a very independent group home. These are boys that had jobs, they were on the sports teams, they were living as close to a familial life as possible. And I got the address and I went to go meet with him, and I pulled in to the driveway and I knock on the door and a teen answers the door. I said, "Oh, I'm here to see blank." And he turns around and he goes, "Blank, there's a white lady here to see you. I think she's somebody that's going to help you." And I just thought,
Oh.
and and I thought it was funny because he didn't have any reason to say that. But then I realized, once I got to know this child, and we spent about 6 months together,
Hmm.
every person that was assigned to him did not look like him. And
Ah.
I thought, is this the best way to advocate for you?
Yeah.
Or is it a good way to be so objective that it didn't matter? And I never got an answer to that. I don't
Mm.
know if it was easier for me to rally for him and stand
Yeah.
up for him and get him into an independent apartment, which I did, and get him
Hmm.
hooked up with foster closet, which I did,
Hmm.
because we didn't have any outward connection, or if it would have been better if I had a bigger connection. I still think about that, but
Oh, wow.
it was a really, working with him was very satisfying. What I also learned talking with his counselors and his therapists and everyone is he had been close to being adopted twice. I mean, close, like had been
Oh,
in this family for
yeah.
a year, and he would sabotage at the
Oh,
end because ultimately it was better to reject than be rejected.
right. And that, I heard that story so many times in
Mhm.
the period of time that I worked as a guardian ad litem, that kids would intentionally
Yep.
sabotage so that they could do it before it got done to them. And
Mhm.
that broke my heart. But what I hear from you is that your heart was involved in all of the cases in which you became engaged.
Yes. Absolutely. Without question, I would march into that meeting or the courtroom or a hearing, or I just phone calls with criminal, there were some criminal aspects and
Hmm.
entangled, and I just, it didn't make one difference. I had a goal, and that was to advocate for for
Yeah.
this child. And there would be resistance, there would be family members that were trying to reunify, and it was clear that that was not healthy for the child. And
And still you stood your ground and represented that child's best interests.
yep, yep. And I think it was easy because the stakes were so high that there
Hmm.
was no room for self-doubt. It was, this is what has to happen.
Gotcha.
There's no choice, this is
Gotcha.
what's going to happen. And I was thankfully successful enough. um and I think I'll return to it, Angie. I think, as my kids get older,
Hmm.
I've always I've missed it, and I think
Yeah.
I need to probably re-engage,
Yeah.
because it was very satisfying to walk out of court and see that I did something for a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
And by
amazing.
and large, I would be willing to bet that most people who work in that program in whatever capacity have the heart to do it, because it
Yes.
is such a wow. I don't even know a word to describe it, but you have to have a heart to do it in order to do it. And I love you for saying that you would be willing to go back.
Yeah.
Um, and I think my experience with my child gives me a different perspective on that. And so let's move to the next phase of our conversation and talk about the fact that we both have in common, we have adopted,
Yeah.
and we do have children, and we have expanded our family.
Hmm.
What other than, or it was the singular reason that you did um, enlarge your family. Well, let me see how I want to ask that question.
Okay.
You wanted to enlarge your family, so you already said that. Why do you think that you did it in the way that you did?
I knew carrying another child was out of the question,
Mm-hmm.
just physically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I felt there was a brokerage factor
Mm-hmm.
to private adoption that made
Yeah.
me
Oh,
very
yeah.
uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to fly. so so it really was kind of not process of elimination, because I don't want this to be interpreted that I picked
Right.
the third door.
Right. Right. Right.
The other two choices became not a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It
So it kind
it
of worked
was
itself out that
it
it.
worked itself out without a
Yeah.
lot of energy on my part.
Yeah.
Some I always say to myself when I'm in a moment of turmoil or something, my prayer to me is get out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got out of the way, it
Yes.
became it
Almost
was
automatic, probably.
it wasn't my problem. It
Yeah.
wasn't my decision.
Yeah.
I got out of the way, and it was slapping me in the face the whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Now I got my son, he was 2 days old when he came home. And one of our mutual friends was actually helpful in the process, if you remember.
I do.
It was just so funny. And I'm going to have to talk to her because every time he has a birthday, I think about her because she was right there.
Yes.
Um, I faced criticism because
Mhm.
I chose that route. Did
Yeah.
you? And by that
Majority
route, I mean adoption.
majority no.
Okay.
100% majority no. Now,
Okay.
I will say the family in which I was raised, my extended family has persons in it from different races, different creeds,
Mm-hmm.
different abilities,
Mm-hmm.
different um everything. So it was not strange to me. Like our family pictures were not homogenous.
Oh,
So that
okay.
was not unusual.
Mm-hmm.
I faced two very specific criticisms, not because of adoption,
Mm-hmm.
but because we are a transracial family.
Okay.
Um, this was happening kind of at the same time as the movie Blind Side, if you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And so there became this psychology of rescuing brown children.
Right. Mm.
And one of the harshest critics of mine is someone that you and I both worked for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember
Um,
that.
and then one other time, I was walking with both of my children in downtown,
Mm-hmm.
holding hands with both of them, and a
Mm-hmm.
woman came up to me kind of aggressively and said, "I don't approve of that." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And she said that, and I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I
Right.
moved out of her way. I knew
Mhm.
what she was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so my inner response was, there is no obstacle to anyone helping a child.
Exactly.
And if there had been a different family or person who was more qualified or able,
Mm-hmm.
my prayer all along had been, let any child go to the right home.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have faced, and this was 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
11 years ago, if you will. So I don't think but other than that, it's been not a big deal, and I don't want to minimize that it's a huge deal, not for
Right.
me,
Right.
but it's just we had another kid.
Yeah.
I got two kids.
Yep.
And I will also say one of my doctors surprised me one time when she found out that I had a second child, because she delivered my first child. Um, and she said, "I just don't know if I could love another like my own." And I said, "She's my own." I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
there is no difference at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think if there were any one thing that we could leave with our listeners, it would be that there is no difference
Nope.
in loving a child because you love the child.
That's
And
right.
children present with different personalities, of course, but adults do as well. Children present with different temperaments, of course they do.
Yeah.
Adults do as well. Children get different grades in school, of course they
Hmm.
do. We all did.
Right.
And so it's just a child. And so I think that a lot of the people who are critics of the process haven't taken the time to understand the process. They just get
Right.
stuck on the criticism.
I think you're right. And, I say to my children all the time, I love you more than anything,
Mhm.
and you drive me crazy.
Absolutely right.
And it's
Absolutely right.
equal.
Yeah.
And
Oh
you
my
have
God.
you have three. It
Yeah.
is
Yes.
split
Yes.
in three. I
Yeah.
mean, but I will say one more thing. I think there's a misperception about those who foster
Mm,
being in it for the money.
really.
And there's not enough money in the world
Oh my God.
that
Right.
you would voluntarily open up to these children of
Yes.
trauma who
Yes.
are fighting everything they can and
Yes.
needing medical care and needing
Mhm.
emotional care and not doing well in school and not getting along with people.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's worth $400 a month to you, then
And I was
I
about
don't.
to say who sometimes get delivered to you in the middle of the night with a paper bag,
Right.
and
I
that's
still
all they have.
I
And
still
so,
have the suitcase that she came with. I
oh
mean,
wow,
it's
really? And so
and
let's talk about her. She's beautiful, by the way. And I remember bringing, what did we call her?
you've done her hair. Your
I was about to
baby
say, I
Rattler
remember
did
that we
her
did
hair.
hair. So yes, I'm connected to her. That's my niece. Both of them are. So would you say that you're a role model then for the cause?
If I am, it's not for celebration.
Hmm.
If I mean, it's funny. Somebody challenged me once. They said, if you could do a 40-minute, if you had to stand up right now and talk for 40 minutes about something, what would it be? And I said, foster to adopt. Like, it was
Hmm.
no
Hmm.
hesitation.
Hmm. Hmm.
I I want to be someone that can answer questions and help guide.
Yeah.
Um, I also know that it's a situation that not every family is okay with, and it's not a judgy thing. It doesn't
Right.
elevate me above anything.
Hmm.
It's just it's a different scenario. But I think I think if I am in any sort of way an influence, it would be their kids. Love the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Love the kids. And
Exactly.
the sooner you can love each other without worrying or
Mhm.
being cognizant of what box people fit in,
Right. Yep.
because kids don't pay attention to that
And I
until
think that we as
they're
adults get
old.
stuck on exactly what you said. We get stuck on boxes. We get stuck on boxes.
Yep.
Are you this? Are you that? Check
Right.
this. Choose one. But there are some things in life, some things that we are in life. There is not a box to choose
Mm-mm.
from.
Nope.
And I think if we can get past the point of having to be assigned a box, and that has its own separate conversation, but
Right.
we've got to get to that place. Um,
Yep.
but I am excited to know that you have an interest in returning. I'm excited to
Absolutely.
know that you love being a mother. I'm excited to
Yeah.
know that your daughters are beautiful and they're growing up healthy and wholesome. I'm excited to know that. And so then I'll ask you this question, but I'm going to preface it with a member of my family said to me they didn't agree with adoption and that there were going to be certain restrictions on how they reacted to the adopted one that I have. And let me tell you something. Children make you change your mind. Children make you eat your words because it is so the opposite right now. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to, I was hurt because how can you do that to a child? But as life is, and children have the impact or effect on us that they do, all of those predispositions were washed away. And
Yep.
so I think, as we're talking and we're having people listen to us talk, I think that one of the things I want to emphasize is when we start to accept people for just being people,
Mm-hmm.
all of those other things get washed away. They go by the wayside. That's from children to
Absolutely.
adults. Children, if we as adults could get along with each other like children do, oh, what a wonderful world this would be.
Yep. I agree. And it's and here's the thing, Angie. you don't have to like everyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to agree with
Right.
everyone.
Right.
You don't have to have the same beliefs
Yeah.
or maybe different values. But this is what I tell my kids all the time. If you don't like someone, leave them alone. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
ignore them. They
Yeah.
don't exist.
Yeah.
And I think kids naturally evolve into little groups, not necessarily to exclude, but
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of find their commonality. I
Yeah.
mean, you and I have been friends for over 20 years.
Yeah.
We have a lot of overlap.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's other people that you have met 3 weeks ago that you don't want to be friends with. There's
Right.
people
And
like
it's
that.
okay. But that's
And it's
all of
not,
that's
but
okay.
you're not going to be aggressive towards
Right.
anyone. You're
Right.
not going to antagonize anyone. And
Exactly.
and and here's the other thing. I don't care if I know you or like you or not. If I see somebody being cruel,
Mm-hmm.
I will say something.
Yes. Yes, and that's the way. If children were being raised with that same mindset, that I believe that problems in school wouldn't be what they are.
Yep,
If parents spent more time teaching children conflict resolution, it's
that's right.
okay to disagree. We don't, in the words that you just said, I don't have to be ugly or antagonistic toward you.
Mm-mm.
If I don't agree with you, then
Mhm,
okay, I don't agree with you on that point,
mhm.
but we're still friends. We can still get along because we'll
Right,
just talk about something else. And so that's, kind of where
right.
I spend a lot of my time with the people who I have relationship with, and it's just amazing because they all know that my youngest is adopted. And I tell you the truth, sometimes I forget that I didn't give birth to him. That's how insignificant the adoption was.
That's right.
It was important when it happened, but that's over. That's done. I have a son. Period.
Correct.
And to anybody who would criticize me, the only thing I said was, "Oh, you're talking about my son?" That's all I had to say because that's who he was to me. And so let me ask you this question then. Would you encourage your daughters to adopt?
100%. I,
Really?
I have seen nothing strange about it
Hmm.
or unnatural about it
Hmm.
or unloving about it.
Hmm.
And I think that they, growing up, looking at each other as
Hmm.
siblings,
Hmm.
makes it so unweird. I mean,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it's they love like siblings
Hmm.
and they fight like
Hmm.
siblings and they
Hmm.
protect like
Yes.
siblings and
Yes.
they jostle like siblings. There
Hmm.
is, I mean, and for me, my perspective, I'm an only child, so it freaks me out when they fight with each other and their father will say, yeah, this is what they do. And
Uh-huh.
they will fight for 5 minutes straight, the arguing, the bickering, and then within 30 seconds,
Oh, sure. Yep.
can I borrow that sweater? Do you want to watch
Yes.
a movie? And I'm like,
Yes.
how are you over this? Oh,
Hmm.
this is what
Hmm.
it is.
Yep.
So would I encourage it? Absolutely.
Okay.
Would I make it, would I help them in any way I could?
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And the world is full of babies that need love.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will say one of the funniest, when I brought my youngest to her first appointment at the pediatrician that I had been having my other child go to,
Hmm.
the doctor walked in and had kind of the information form, and she said, "Oh, where was she born?" And I said the name of the hospital.
Hmm.
That sounds a little exotic for Jacksonville. And she asked me, "Is that an island nation?" And I said, "No, it's right here." I said, "There are brown babies born here
Right.
in
Right.
neat homes.
Right.
We're
And
not."
so, you know what? I think that what we get a chance to do by virtue of our parenting and our situations is educate others about this. And
Yeah,
so, what I like is your honesty in saying, I didn't even realize that there were babies that needed to
did not.
be adopted from
Mm-mm,
foster. Um,
mm-mm.
and I think to the people who are listening to us, what they need to leave this conversation understanding is that there are children who need to be adopted.
Yeah,
There are babies, there are teens,
yep,
there are
Sib-
circumstances.
Sibling groups.
Yes. Oh, and we see that so much. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's not a scary thing
Mm-mm.
to adopt. You go to the
Mm-mm.
class, you get the information.
Yep,
If that's where your heart is, I don't think that people need to be scared away from it. And if the scare is, I don't know what people are going to say, you can't worry about that. What are they going to say when you wear that blue dress tomorrow? They don't like that either. Are you going to change because they don't like your dress? And
that's right.
so we've been talking for about 30 minutes and it sure doesn't seem like it. But as we close, what would you say to the listeners about the foster care system, the needs, and how they can avail themselves of the information?
It, it's kind of a complex system, unfortunately, but Family Support Services is the umbrella that oversees all of the foster care in the Fourth Judicial Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
These children are then connected to a specific foster agency.
Okay.
But if you want to get involved, you can go to Family Support Services, and there are options to volunteer. Every summer, there's a huge surf camp here
Mm-hmm.
at the beach
Mm-hmm.
for kids in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
Then one of the ranches does an equine camp.
Mm-hmm.
There's if you want to read to children, there's a program for that. If you want to teach a child a skill, there are men's clubs where they teach children how to tie a tie,
Mm-hmm.
how to change a tire. There's a group that teaches how to braid hair.
Mm-hmm.
You can give as little or as much as you want. And if you want to make the ultimate contribution, you can train and learn how to be a foster family,
Mm-hmm.
and you can sign up for as little as you want. There are some families called respite where they relieve
Mm-hmm.
the full-time foster families,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes they have a funeral to go to and they can't
Yeah.
drag 5 or 6 kids with them.
Right. Right.
They have the emergent, where it's the middle of the night doorbell ring.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Mm-hmm.
they have the more, the homes with kids that have aged out. Their own kids they're empty nesters, and they've got
Mm-hmm.
2 empty bedrooms, and they've
Mm-hmm.
got bunk beds. And
Yeah.
no, there's nothing too little or too great. But
Yeah.
your first stop has to be Family Support Services, which is
Got it.
right here. It was on Beach. I'm not sure if it's moved, but they are the umbrella over everything. And
Okay.
you can come teach a child to knit.
Mm-hmm.
You can come teach a child how to play chess. I mean, there's literally no limit, because these are kids that would otherwise maybe learning these skills
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
home.
Let me ask
People,
one other question. It's kind of a
yeah,
big step backwards. How, for the people who are listening, we talk as if they understand how children end up there. How
okay.
do kids end up in foster care?
There's usually 3 routes in.
Okay.
One, which is the least common, is the parents die and
Hmm.
there's no one,
Oh, I hadn't thought about that one.
there's no plan in place.
Yeah.
So there's a tragic car accident
Mm-hmm.
and the baby survives.
Yeah.
And there's no estate planning.
Yeah.
2 is a child is removed due to violence.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a DCF, Department of Children and Families,
Right.
dispatch
Mhm.
investigation, and the child is removed because of imminent harm to that child.
Yes.
That gets an emergent care. That is the highest level of care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The third is neglect,
Okay.
where a child isn't injured with obvious injuries,
Mm-hmm.
but shows up hungry a
Mm-hmm.
lot,
Yeah.
or dirty a lot,
Yeah.
or decaying teeth,
Mm-hmm.
or eye vision. The Duval County Schools is they have so many resources for dental
Mm-hmm.
examinations and
Mm-hmm.
eye vision,
Yep.
vision care and hearing and dyslexia. Those are the 3 biggies.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was drawing a pie, 70% would be neglect,
Okay.
25% would be physical abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest would be death of parent.
Gotcha. Okay.
So most of these, which means most of these children, if they're over the age of, I mean, what's your earliest core memory? 3 or 4?
Mm-hmm.
So most of the children over that age are very aware of what's happened.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I promise in my introduction to always end on a positive note. And
Yes.
so I think our positive perspective from this is, if you're listening, that there is something you can do to help a child who just needs a little bit of help. And if you're not the one who wants to adopt and you're not the one who wants to foster, perhaps you have time and interest and you just want to show a child, read a book to a child or
Yep.
something. I think that for everyone who's paying attention to us today, there is something they can do
Mm-hmm.
after hearing from us that there are children who need the love that our listeners have. And all of us have a certain amount of love that we're able to give. The task or the test is whether we're willing to give. And I think by human nature is that we give love. And
Yes.
so I think what I want our listeners to know, and I'll ask you to share the same, is that it doesn't matter what love looks like, it matters what love feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's my positive note that I want to leave on. It doesn't matter what love looks like. It can look like me or it can look like you. Our friendship over these 20 years, the love that we have for each other, there's nothing anybody can do about that.
Mm-mm.
And I think that
Yep.
if we can get the word out to our listeners that love isn't love until you give it away.
Yep.
And there are children who need to receive what we have to give away. And what would you say?
I would say the most amazing thing about love is it's endless. And no matter how much I give it away, I never use it up.
Absolutely. And that is a great place to end. Melody, thank you so much. And
And
we're going
I
to have to
love
do lunch. We've been talking about this
we
forever. I love
right.
you, girl. And you
I
got to
love
give the
you.
ladies a hug for me.
The last time I saw you, we got our shirts. My VP looks like me.
That's right. That's right. Yes. All righty. So it's time for more shirts. Give the girls
Absolutely.
a hug. Tell
I
them
will.
that Auntie Angie said
Auntie Angie's
hello.
absolutely. And say hi to Baby Rattler for
I
me.
sure will. And the baby of the baby rattler.
The
Right.
baby. I love
Yes.
you.
Thank you so much, Melody. We'll chat soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining me. And I hope that something was shared here today that gets your wheels turning and gets the ideas flowing. And as long as you know that you have something that you can give to others, we're in a great place. Our love is meant to be shared. And the more love we share, the more love we get. I want you to do me a favor. Like, share, forward this to all of your people in your relationship circle and just let them know that Positive Perspectives with your host, Angela Tompkins, has been on the air and we've got something to say.